Hacksmith, the 14 million subscribers YouTube channel, asked Flux Academy students to redesign their website. Last week, we met with the clients to hear about their strategy, what they want and need in a new website. This week, our goal is to translate this strategy into a creative direction. What that means is we're going to set the look and feel that we're going to use in the new website. Colors and fonts and imagery to make sure that the new creative direction is in line with what the client actually wants. So our first step is going to be to write a brief summing up everything that we learned in the strategy session and make sure that the client signs up on that. Once that is done, we're going to start off with mood boarding. Mood boarding is basically collecting a bunch of information, references, and inspiration to guide our choices of color and typography. So we have two teams. Each of them is led by a different professional mentor, and you're going to see each student, how they're coming up with their ideas and getting feedback from our mentors to see their work improves as this episode progresses. Towards the end of the episode, we'll consolidate all of these ideas into two winning creative directions, present both of them to the client to see which one they like best. Welcome to StudioXperience, a 5-part series showing you behind the scenes of how professionals do web design. Brought to you by Flux Academy and Webflow. So our first step today is to get agreement on the brief that the students have written to make sure that the clients agree on the direction that we're going towards. Today, I want to send the client the consolidated brief. I went through all of your briefs and I put one that I feel represents everything that you have shared, including my understanding. The client loved the brief and signed it up, and that's already our first success in this project. Now our student's going to take this brief and translate it into Moodboard by collecting some inspiration and turning that into type, color, and image choices. Let's see how they're doing.
We're going to talk about creative direction. Just take us through your Figma file really, and just talk us through thoughts really on your decisions and what you've put together.
I started with a mind map, show, not tell, bold, energy, motion, technology, wow effect. I choose some projects, Lufthansa, center layout, imagery, clarity, and focus. Another interesting project, a website of the US Air Force, Spider-Man, that dualism between fiction and reality. In terms of colors, I have a few options, red and yellow, because it's about energy, including gradients, because gradients are a trend now.
This is really good work, Alex. This idea of dualism is really smart because they might actually like to weave into their story.
From the meeting and the podcast that I listened to with James, he seems to be very inspired by the kind of like eccentric billionaire, Tony Stark kind of character, looking at, the Marvel Universe and Stark Industries. It makes sense to build on that and to kind of borrow a lot from there. So we could recreate hyper-real graphic imagery. I tried to imagine if Stark Industries had a website, that's possibly like the kind of look and feel.
I took inspiration from gaming and Web3. I was thinking also about the colors. Also, I like the typography and everything, which is still look very modern and even a little bit hipster. I had another direction from the same websites almost, but more in the playful side of it.
I like seeing your thinking and your rationale. You've done that extra steps in terms of type and color, and you didn't spend much time on it, but I actually think this option is probably the really strong option.
So based on the brief, I established a couple of design visual directions that I'm going to go for. So one is mainly cutting edge, and the other one is very video based. Websites like Palantir or OpenAI. I also looked at how do you convey inspiration. Then when I look at Nike, it's using those bold, fatter kind of typefaces and squishing them together. So I did a few mock-ups, and these are a couple of sample directions: bold, squished up, inspiring.
For the materials and the physical, tangible inspo, it could also be used for a logo as it's kind of anvil shaped.
This materials idea, I actually would almost encourage everybody maybe think about picking this up, almost like the idea of futuristic materials.
We're just gonna sort of put our heads together, so there's no pressure to have something that's super perfect. There's no idea that it's too wild or too ambitious in my books.
References that I thought could be in line with the boldness, innovation, engineering, badass, and entertainment. They're engineers. They basically bring to life your childhood dream. Bold type, some bright colors, this moodboard stylescape that brings together the boldness, the engineering parts with some technical graphic elements.
High level of engineering, technicality, but they're really skilled and there's an outcome at the end. Taking a peek over Tony Stark's shoulder and keeping the colors really minimal, witty, and engaging. Close up on the design software they're using, have a plan the grid, isometric shapes, GT Cinetype, and it's very geometric. Blacksmith's colors are loosely based off of those things. So like coal, steel, powder, fire, and oil. The deconstructed look, sort of some motion inspiration, maybe showing the preview.
Tech companies or tech logos. Then I was exploring their blueprints of their lightsabers, AirPod product page because of these blueprints. I went with these keywords: strong, masculine, tech, bold, immersive, bleeding edge, because they got an award for the first working lightsaber in the world. So my color palette was inspired by that.
Something more minimalistic with the Swiss Army knife, several different typography. Got some photography as well. I really like this vibe, non-nerdy engineering stuff. I really think they've nailed on this vibe, and this is the kind of photography that they should keep on using. This is basically what I summed up.
Seeing if there's room to include some actual blueprints, which I think could be a nice touch. References are really cool.
I took a more fictional direction. Movie posters from Star Wars, Marvel, colors. Still thinking about it, but I think black and white and maybe some little light like this.
What I think is cool is that looking at this from the fan perspective is that when you get an opportunity as well to sort of then maybe compile or collate visuals, I personally really like the small little detailing in the type that adds some character. So looking at the K, I think that's super cool.
I think our designers are off to a great start. However, I noticed that a few of them got something a little bit wrong. So many of you have focused on the science fiction, comics, stuff like this. Going into the future, they're not trying to build a comics book. They're trying to actually build the Stark Industries, a company that innovates. And this is really, really important. Listening to them, what they want to look like is Apple and Tesla and SpaceX. Because our designers took the feedback from me and the mentors, and after 2 weeks of really intense work, they really stepped up their game. Here's what they're working on right now.
The concept is like a futuristic, dirty tech. This is one of the images from the current website of James in a workshop, that kind of dirty engineering feel, but mix it with a minority of more techie and futuristic kind of feel.
Based on the logo, last week, we expanded this to the full-size logo with the new logo type. I created some patterns as visible in this styling. It could be used for merch, it could be used for just overall the identity. So I also mocked up some t-shirt, how this would work.
I try to understand which colors I will use for what. I thought about the typography, and I really like this font for titles and this font for the running text. And I played a little bit with the icon, and I created this pixel perfect ninja.
I created 3 different directions: big images, bold text. I keep that duality from blueprint to real world. I'm trying to emphasize that I need big videos, bold videos, large images, going with Stratum combined with Futura for paragraphs. And in terms of colors, a dark blue industrial gradient, and this kind of orange and white. The second direction, the primary difference is the colors and the contrast. My third option is a combination between those two. We keep that duality, in my view.
Everything is just conceptualized into one. I will call it futuristic and inspiring. We need to see how can the design showcase their work more. In terms of the primary colors, I'm going more for the Iron Man kind of look. For the logo itself, I finally finalized on this, I'll call it a futuristic anvil. For the typeface, I'm going more for a futuristic font so that it's more appealing to the general public. It is very legible, enables the videos to shine through, and it still look professional too.
Here you can see in the apply in a title, in a heading, I just stitched these things together to have a more comprehensive view of a page. Random packaging, but coherent with the visual direction.
Piecing together how this logo is going to be shaped. It sort of ends up being a crest symbolizing their identity, the legacy of what Hacksmith is, and sort of what this new chapter is. We see the word mark here. I ended up using 2 different typefaces, which you'll see to the right. But again, just sort of playing on subtle textures, a little bit more neon, big headlines, and then a CT Cinetype, a t-shirt, or packaging, and how we could play on the messaging when somebody opens it up. Can we do something with the actual web experience itself? Maybe there's a motion thing that loads in, and you kind of get this cool sort of circular motion.
To the new logo, and I paired it with a typeface, Montserrat. These are the colors that I have chosen. Packaging, wanted to incorporate the current much better now, because even from the distance, you can actually still see the Anvil logo on the building, on the wall, on the Home Hero section, projects section in the same style.
Deconstructed the anvil, put it together with the typeface I did before. I was trying to test out the font here with notebooks and stuff like that. So I landed on this, and I'm here now.
Presentation of the logo, black and white, typography. See here some examples on their website. For the colors, pick those from their images, from some ideas how it would look like, a poster, the website, in a mock-up.
Feel free to pause the video right now and let us know which creative direction you liked best so far. We're at a really great spot, but now we get to a little bit of a tricky part. We can't present the client with 10 different creative directions. That would be too overwhelming. We have to only present 2. The team leaders have the challenge to consolidate all their great ideas within their team into a consolidated idea, creative direction that actually makes sense, and present that to the client. Let's see how they're doing.
I think that there are bits that would work from each of the members' Figma files can sort of insert into the full presentation. We're going to sort of walk them through our rationale behind typography choices, photography elements, 3D and illustration and all of that. I do believe that Matteo has the best suited direction for presentation to the client.
Fungi and Ran and I actually spoke, and the mood board that Paul had, which he showed last week, we felt was the best jumping off point for a more differentiated approach, like stretching them more, pushing the client more into a new area visually.
Now that each team has consolidated under a single presentation, it's time to present these 2 distinct creative directions to the Hacksmith team and see which one of them they resonate with more. Watch and learn how these professional mentors present and sell their team's ideas to the Hacksmith team. What you're going to see and what we want to hear from you. We need to make like a philosophy about the choices we make, about the imagery, about the colors, about typography, have everything telling the same story together. We try to go with 2 different approaches today, and we're still anyway going to try and develop 2 distinct ideas for you that we can make a decision on in the later stage. Let's see both directions, 2 approaches, and then let's open them up side by side and have a discussion and hear what you think, what resonates.
As a team, what we were really wanting to do was to see how we could translate the current Hacksmith entity into something that looks more credible, more appealing for potential partners and fans. We sort of went about it is that we collected a bunch of visuals heavily centered on precision geometry, pays homage to the engineering background, which creates some drama by using staged imagery and photography. So there's very dramatic lighting supported by us going back to the roots. How can we further amplify what you currently have and match it? This takes us to Hacksmith Reloaded, our consolidated visual direction. We focused on innovation, engineering, boldness, and overall we just wanted for this to look super badass. These geometric motifs. So we can see it more here, just to really emphasize precision, laser cuts and scientific data to the T. We wanted to add a bit of edge, but not make it intimidating. Also wanted to see how we could tie in some visual storytelling with the aspect of blacksmithing. And we just updated the current brand palette. We drew inspiration from the blacksmithing process itself, even when it comes to color naming. So the next thing that we looked at is the Smith's writing. So this would be the typography. Condensed sans serif by Shock Type, which we think would work extremely well across all kinds of collaterals. We paired this off with a very sensible body type, Titanium Web. And as we go further, Sharp Text, which is our main display font, is very flexible. The next thing that we looked at was the Smith's Mark. These are some of the explorations that we went through and cycled through as a team. So we are trying to think of how we could still retain brand equity and still retain the messaging behind the logos. And what we landed on was this option here. It is a much more simplified version of what the current logo is, but it still carries the emphasis of the story. We have the handle of a Swiss Army knife, and this also forms part of the anvil. And then we've got this saw blade tool at the top here. We're thinking of the visuals. So what kind of imagery and how are we going to portray the Hacksmith team? Three main characteristics, which are the inventive pillar, the witty pillar, so just a pure sense of humor, and engaging content that would veer more towards the informative of Hacksmith through the website to be like, how would we then sort of group everything together and what sort of imagery would be appropriate for that? The other thing that we thought about was 3D, just technical imagery. It can maybe have like moving 3D molds and pulling things apart. This would create some intrigue and interest, especially for makers. And this brings us to the toolkit. We have this mock-up here that we created of what a potential hero could look like. So there's some form of dramatic staging here. We have a very strong type here, big bold headline. And then we've got a subtle effect with text shadows just to add a little bit more drama. Logo lockup up here. So then have applications here that could show you potential cards. So maybe if it's like the news section, maybe it's projects that you've worked on. And also just seeing how banned these cards and have information that's relevant in the e-commerce store. This would be a representation of maybe an e-commerce section on the website, again, still in the same visual language, thinking of career section, what could that look like? And again, we want for Hacksmith to appear very real. So our thing was to see if we can actually include photography that's relevant. Just started playing around with seeing how branding looks in interior spaces. So we put the new mark on a shirt and then we have it in the background here just so that we can really see how it functions. Social proof, so just sort of seeing how we can retain a consistent visual language even on the YouTube channel. Products, seeing how the mark and the logo translates across different kinds of physical collateral that people can actually buy. We explored packaging, boxes, again, making sure that the visual language is very consistent. We're retaining the type, we're retaining our color palette, we're retaining our logo mark, just so that everything is tied together nicely. Our proposed mark would also work in tighter spaces. By the ignition switch here, we sort of replace that. When it comes to functionality and responsiveness, then our proposed mark actually works in that context as well. How does the logo look when you have to superimpose it on imagery? Like if there's needs to create a catalog or whatever the case may be, is that something that works? It's very crisp, it's very visible, it's highly legible, and in combination with the imagery and the text, it works quite well. This is the culmination of everything. This would be where we started, where we have the current YouTube banner. We wanted to see how we could recreate this so that it could fit in the mold of the visual identity that we're proposing to you. We have put forward just a visual overview so that you can get a snapshot of everything in one, an appreciation of the proposed mark and logo lockup, our color palette, our typography, and just sort of seeing applications for the website and how that could potentially work in real life as well.
This direction's Hacksmith Revolution. From the brief, the primary objective of what we're doing is to make the website much more credible and appealing. With either direction, we're going to do that. We also wanted to pull out cohesive and high quality visual element. Watching your videos, it's clear that you guys know materials really well, and it's actually sourcing and having the knowledge of the right materials that allows you to build the things that you do. It's exactly the same with the website. What we need to do is have higher quality materials to work with, and that'll allow us to execute vision of this quality website. So where do we pull those from? It needs a hook, it needs creativity, it needs strong concepts. I want to take you through a few concepts that have inspired our thinking. Future tech, this vision of what technology might look like in the future that we see from Hollywood. There's like a kind of a consistent aesthetic here with this dark mode and this holographic kind of look. But at the same time, you guys need to be perceived as professional, as a credible partner. Advantageous thing about this is this kind of dark mode sort of look with these accents and these lights is being used a lot by top media companies, Web3. This is a look that can also take on more of a professional edge. The next concept is duality. And this is something that has really come through for me and has inspired me from your work. The duality of light and dark, physics, light, the wave particle duality. We have the electric field is the dual of the magnetic field in electromagnetism. But with what you do, we have from technical drawings to physical products. Something that begins in somebody's mind is then translated and becomes a physical reality. Or as you guys describe it at the moment, from fictional ideas to real working prototype. And it's that journey from fantasy to reality that really captures the imagination of your audience. And these are some examples of how you might be able to represent that sort of idea of the duality, the two worlds, the prototype and the real, the sketch and the final product. We're getting into this idea of gathering these highest quality materials. So let me jump into that. So with the type, just as Fungi described, we want real high quality type. So going to Sharp Foundry as our first direction, or this one is from Luzzi Type, which is one of the top foundries in Switzerland. And these guys know how to prepare top quality materials. We don't want fonts that everybody else uses. That's not going to make your work distinctive, and it's not necessarily going to be the highest quality. So this is an example of gathering a higher quality material, and you'll begin to see how this looks like. With the color palette, we really wanted to go in a new direction and be inspired by the references, be inspired with this duality with the dark and light. So we've got lots of off blacks and dark greens, specks of light kind of pop out with these aquas, these light blues, some colors that would just really stand out, these pinks and lilac. It just gives it a real contemporary edge. It's got a youthful feeling, and it's appealing to the generation that's coming through. And these little accents will do that and add a lot of interest, as you'll see. Textures. So this is kind of inspired by the workshop, the spray paint booth, the offcuts, the chippings, the dust that's in the air that you see when you turn the lights on. All those things that are created in the workshop using grids and also line drawings. And again, we have this duality idea on display where we move from the line drawing to the real image. For this, we wanted to retain brand equity. So we still have an anvil within a circle. So that helps continue, the brand equity that you built up. But we want to create something that's more iconic. The current symbol is difficult to reduce. It's too detailed. Some of the lines aren't sharp. A lot more iconic. It will reduce, as Fungi talked about, a lot better, which means it'll be great at small sizes. But it also tells a story. The Smith name is in there. The anvil is clearly recognizable. But also we have this duality from fantasy to reality. Thor's hammer there that we have hitting the anvil, the comic book into the real world when you actually begin to make things. Here's how this could work as a word mark. And I would encourage this to be the default lockup, more aesthetically pleasing. It's also going to be more iconic. So let's look at some applications. So this is how the new logo might look on a hoodie, whether we just use the symbol, which can be used by itself and it's recognizable, or with the full combination mark, maybe on the side of your Jeep. I'm sure you're going to get one of these for everybody on the team. More of your merchandise, these kind of things that you might want to sell, and trying to create things that are more fashion-led, that are going to be more desirable, that people are going to want to wear out, not just because they're super fans of the channel, but because it has the level of design that they would be attracted to. So this is some little props we've done of the website, similar to what Fungi's done. Again, we're not designing the website right now. Between this phase and the next time we speak, we're going to go into wireframes, then visual design through all different pages and really craft that. But we wanted to show you how these elements all come together. Here we can see more of that noise gradient and those other colors coming through and how that's really going to stand out. With a lot of contrast. But overall, with this aesthetic, really, it's something that's much more tasteful. It's much more polished and refined. As you want to move more towards that premium brand, this website is going to be something that really anchors that. This website shows that you're a very serious company and you take your aesthetics and the way your brand is perceived seriously too. We would take the time to craft something like this, but it does show you sort of the elements coming together that the thing can be elevated. Just a little stretch idea for you too. Hacksmith Heroes. We're having like a trading card style team page. And I thought for that it would be fantastic to do a photo shoot of different characters, the channel presenters as heroes, possibly use some AI image generation with that as well. Create these really stylized images. And it's the kind of thing that movie studios produce, and it would really put your brand, alongside them. Black field with white text and yellow and red pops of color is a classic combination. That high contrast just creates a really loud, bold scheme, and it pairs well with this angular
headline font set in all caps. And together, the whole thing really suits their tone of voice and the imagery that we have to work with. I didn't see the sense of showing them two versions of the same thing. When some of my team latched onto the client's desire to be a little bit more grown up, a little bit more perceived like a tech company, I thought there was an opportunity there. Maybe we can do something that's more restrained and it has a different kind of mature confidence.
After 3 weeks of intense work, now the team gets to know which direction the Hacksmith team likes better. Which one do you think it's going to be? Join us next week as we find out and we continue with the web design process with the selected direction. I'll see you there.